First off, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for all the messages we've heard so far. There's just been so many good messages, good content, great nuggets. I'm excited to go work a show as soon as I get home. I think other people are as well. Yeah. So I'm here to talk about mental toughness. And this is an interesting message to give for sure. So I know when they asked me, this isn't the first time I've been asked to give a message on this. Brian Carter always tells me my superpower is I'm like a duck on water, where like my feet are going crazy, but I'm always floating and still. And I take that as a compliment that he meant it to be. But we have a unique job here in Cutco. And I think sometimes we either ignore it or we don't think about it. And it is important, like Roger said, it's something that we should probably be aware of. The events program, it's different for all of us. We all have different moments. We live in different cities. We do different things. But at the same time, it's all pretty much the same. The customers are the same. I've worked in other states. I've worked with other divisions. And I've noticed more than anything, we kind of go through the same thing no matter where we are. If you think about it, we're working 8 to 13-hour days almost every weekend, sometimes almost every day, and sometimes for weeks or months at a time. If we're being honest with ourselves, it's not for the weak. Like, we have to show up day in and day out, and we have to be ready to give our best at all times. We have high expectations on us because we all have things that we have to do. We have goals that we're trying to hit. We have families that we're trying to support. We have bills that we have to pay. So the things we do when we're at these events does matter. Like, obviously, we all want to sell a bunch of Cutco, but what's the level of seriousness that you take whenever you show up to the booth? So the best part is every week, that total goes right back to 0. That's like my favorite thing. Now, we have to deal with all sorts of unknowns whenever we're there, and we have to do our very best to always answer every question the right way, and we have to have the right attitude with every interaction and with every customer. And it can be a lot. And just saying it out loud, it can be draining for people. The nice thing is that's a normal thing to go through. We've all had those moments and we've all had those feelings, and that's okay. The reality is our brains, they'll just try to mess us up. Like, we have those thoughts. We start second guessing ourselves and we start wondering why we did what we did, or why we said what we said, or why the customer walked when they walked. We start comparing ourselves to the other people we're working around. Like, oh man, I'm working with Curtis today. Like, I'm not gonna do what he does. And it's just funny, I see people do that, like Curtis comes and works with us at our fair. And I work with Curtis and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna outsell him today. Today's the day. We start making excuses on why we don't do as well as the people we're working with. We struggle with things that are honestly outside of our control. We make excuses. We give ourselves the out. We say things like, oh, it's a bad show. That's why it didn't go that well. Or, oh, there wasn't really any people here, so that's why I didn't get the sales that I wanted to get today. All right, so it was just crazy slow, so that's what happened. All right, I looked at Eventalytics. That show only sold 3K last year. Like, why did I even pick it? My favorite is turn roulette. Like, I just got all the tire kickers. Like, that's why I didn't have a good day today. Like, they just got all the walk-ups. That's what it was. The moment you feel like when you really crush that demo, and I know we've all had that, where you just, like, you nailed everything. The customer was vibing. It was just the right moment. And they're like, all right, bye. Oh, it hurts. And when those things start to happen, we start to give ourselves permission to just write the day off. And we just start to accept it for what it is. We start saying those things to ourselves like, I'll just do better tomorrow. Or we start pushing the wrong way with the clients when we know we shouldn't be that type of way. We start being negative in the booth, affecting the other people that we're around. We stop celebrating the wins of the team and our booth mates because we aren't having those same wins. We start being upset because that other person is crushing it. And I'm getting all those people that won't buy a knife. I can't sell a paring knife to save my life. Like, has anybody ever had that moment at the show where you stop and you just look and you're just like, man, did I forget how to sell Cutco? Like, anybody? Like, I've worked with some of the greatest people in our company, and I see them literally just like, man, did I forget what to do? I've been doing this for like 15 years. Did I forget? Like so many things, these things, they start to happen. They start to affect our state of mind. And I honestly believe that we choose to let it affect us the way it does. like it's 100% a conscious choice. Even having a great first part of the day affects the way we handle things. Like sometimes we go into the booth and that first demo, you get that ulti and then you up the legacy cookware and you're like, I'm good. I don't have to try it anymore. Like I can coast now because I had a great day. We start getting on the phone. We start being content. We just kind of let it happen. It's easy to get caught in that mental loop, and it's easy to just say screw it and give up on the day. It's amazing to not do that. It's amazing to keep challenging yourself, like Roger would say. Curtis said it in his message yesterday. When I heard it, I was just like, man, it's so true. But our emotions will directly affect every interaction we have with our customers every time we're there. And we take that for granted sometimes. And it's a growth opportunity for all of us to overcome these moments and choose to keep challenging yourself to be better. We've all had moments like this or something that was similar to them. I have a few examples for me that come to mind specifically about things that I've dealt with in my career. One of the first ones, it's actually me and Josh. A couple years ago, we were working the fair. We were doing 13 days straight, no days off. So open to close, it was me and him every day. And we were just grinding. We were in the outside booth. It was a brand new location. We were having fun, the first few days. But I'm sure anybody could admit at day 9, it's getting a little hard. Day 10, we're like, man, like it's a long one. And I remember like Josh getting that one customer that you don't want to get on day 10 of like 10 days in a row at a fair. And we're like, 6 or 7 hours into the day. And this customer is just a word I can't say on stage. And, and it was funny because Josh got him and like the guy's just being kind of a real, like just back and forth arguing about everything. Oh, that's not how this is. That's not what kind of steel it is. You're lying to me. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And Josh is just like, no, it's like this. And there was a little back and forth. And it was funny because finally I was just like, Josh, just stop. Just let it go. Like, just let him go. And Josh was like, you're right. Thank you. Have a nice day. Like, we're good. We're done. And literally I looked at him and I was just like, hey, Josh, you know what? He's like, what? I was like, you should take a lap. And he's like, what? I was like, you should take a lap. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, 100%, you should. He's like, okay, cool. And he left. He just walked out of the booth. He called his amazing wife, Amy, his accountability partner. We all know she's amazing. And he had a nice chat with her. He was gone for like 5 or 10 minutes. And he came back and he was a different person. Like he got that refresher he needed in that break to come back and just be the Josh that we're used to every day. Because it doesn't matter who you are, we all have those moments, and we have those times whenever we need to step away just for a second. I remember talking to somebody on our team, and they were like, what would you do if you were in a really busy state fair day and that happened? I was like, I would still leave. Because I would rather take the 5 minutes and miss out on that than waste the other 6 hours of the day. Another instance, I was actually working with Rob Steiner. This was at the Oklahoma State Fair. This was like 9 years ago. But like I never forget about this moment. We're working and it was rough. Rob had like 2 orders for the day. Neither one of them were big and one of them was ROR for someone else. I was at 1 order for the day and it was like 286 CPO. And it's like 7 o'clock at night. We have like 2 hours left before the day closes. And Rob's just like, man, today has been a rough one, hasn't it? I was like, yeah. And I think back to like when I was a new rep, like, and Roger kind of brought this up. But like whenever we got events trained, Tom Rochelle was actually the person that ran our training. And one of the biggest takeaways Tom gave me when I was brand new was like, you can never judge a show until it's over. Like, because you honestly don't know how it is going to be until it's done. And I remember looking at Rob and telling him like, hey, like, this is what Tom said. This is how we have to be. Like, you got to be ready. You don't know who's going to come up next. Like, we got to stay in the moment and we got to stay excited because we don't know who we're going to talk to next. And no quicker than I told him that, this couple walks up and you're like, oh, they're the ones. And like I see him and I'm like, you know what? I'm ready. Let's do it. And I go and I talk with them and we start going through stuff. And she's like, oh, I've heard of Cutco. This is really cool stuff, right? And I'm like, it's amazing. You're going to love it. You should buy it. She's like, okay, I think I will buy it. And I'm like, that's awesome. Let's do it. And she buys an ulti with steaks and I'm ecstatic. Like I was so happy because like that does, again, change my entire day. But rather than just take it for granted and end there, I was like, yeah, what do you do for work? Just randomly. Like, I don't even know why I thought about it. We weren't really big on business gifts at this point. And she was just like, her husband was like, oh, I do this. And I was like, oh, do you ever give gifts? And she was like, he doesn't, but I do. And I was like, oh, what do you do? She's like, I'm in disaster relief. I was like, and you give them gifts? She's like, yeah. It's like, how many people do you give gifts? She's like, 50. It's like, do you want to buy 50 gifts with Cutco and we'll put your stuff on it? She was like, okay, yeah, that's awesome. And I was like, oh, this is way better. So like all of a sudden, like I get that big sale. It's like 6,000 or 7,000 CPO. And again, this is, in 2015, this was literally the best day I had at the entire fair. And at 7 p.m., I'm 9 hours into the day, I've only sold $286. So just like, and I always think back to that because I'm like, man, you really never know what's going to happen. And if you choose to give up, you miss out on those opportunities. But if you choose to stay in the moment and you choose to challenge yourself and you choose to be ready for that next great person, they will show up. And Curtis brought it up too. We attract those types of people to us. So because I chose to kind of be ready and be excited and not let myself be down, like I was able to have that great moment. And that's another thing, like we steal this line from Jess Miser, but like CPO and time are not related. And that's one of the best examples I've ever seen of it, so many years ago. Now to go to the complete opposite side of things and to talk about something completely different is when we're having those great days. So I remember last year, it was Brian Carter and I, we were working a really good event, and I was crushing. Like first order of the day, Siggy with steaks. And you're just like, oh, let's go. Like it's about to happen. Next order is literally like an ulti with steaks, up a cookware set. I'm just like, they can't mess with us. We're gonna crush it. And literally like a few small orders, and then it's like, boom, this guy comes up, just got a new house, ulti with steaks, up to a Cutco kitchen. Everything is literally vibing. And towards the end of the day, we probably had an hour and a half left, and Brian knows me well. Brian was actually the original manager that trained me when I was a brand new rep in Cutco. So he's been with me literally since day one. But for me, I don't like to count my totals. I don't want to know what I'm at for the day. I don't really care what I've sold for the day until after the day is over. And then I'll do my numbers and my stats and I'll look at like how it went because I don't need that to affect me. Like, because for me personally, I don't know how you do it, but for me it's just better if I don't know. I just know I sold a lot, that's fine. And he was like, I know you don't care, you don't want to think, but like, what do you think you're at? Like, give me a ballpark. And I was like, okay. So I kind of brushed through it. I'm thinking like, man, I'm like 18 grand, I think. He was like, dude, that's so awesome. I was just like, right? It's like, what's crazy though? He was like, what? I was like, I'm so close to having my first 20K day ever. Like, I just need one more. I need that one person to come back to me. And like, instead of just being like, I'm having literally my best day ever at the booth, instead of just taking that for what it was, I was like, how do I get that extra? Like, that's literally instantly where my mind went. And I remember just calling people like, hey guys, y'all want to help me make magic happen? Y'all want to help me do something I've never done? Like, you want to give me a shot, people? Like, just who will talk to me? And I got that person, and I sold like a 3-piece, and I finished at like 18.9, but I was still happy with it. But that was literally where my head was like, how do I hit that next milestone to check that off the box so I can start shooting for that 25 and that 30K and that 35K day. And I can just keep moving the needle and keep challenging myself for bigger and better things. I bring up those stories because those are specific instances that I look back on and I could have done something else and been fine, but I didn't want to. Like, I've seen so many people and I've heard so many messages and I've seen those things where people are just like, oh, I did this. And when I chose to be like this is why I got the result I got. And I want to be one of those people, and I want to have those stories for myself, and I want to share that with the new guys on our team so we can help them know, like, this is what's possible. So I will always, in any moment I can, do my very best to try to give whoever I'm going to talk to next my very best. I don't care what happened before. I don't care if it was a bad demo or if it was a good demo. That's already done and gone, so I need to focus on who I'm going to get to interact with next, and that's going to be my big challenge. The reality is we have that choice every time we walk into the booth. And we walk into the booth a lot. Dave said it. We did over 10,000 events last year. That's how many choices, that's how many times we had a chance to make a choice. And that's something that we have to keep in mind. Like, we can focus on the negative, or we can figure out how to get out of the funk. Like, we can ask for help and accountability from our team to call us out when we aren't being our best. And sometimes that's hard. I know there's certain people that are like, no, I don't want my team to call me out. But like, why not let them and help you grow and help them grow? Like, again, I look at like that moment I had with Josh, and I love the fact that I can work with people that we're close enough and we can have real enough conversations to hold each other to that high level of accountability so we can always perform at our best. And if we're not doing that, we're okay with saying, hey man, you need 5 minutes. And they're like, you know what, you're right. I know we can all do that. Like we can also, lost my spot, there we go. We can not be mad about anything that's happening because we can be happy about what's gonna happen next. We can take the walk we need to reset the mind. One of the things I love to do is I always have a list. Every morning I wake up with gratitude. That's the big focus. That's the first thing I do. I've done that since before I was in Cutco. I always try to list 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for. If I'm going into shows, I'll go ahead and type them out on a note on my phone. So if I do have a bad moment, I can have something to remind me of why I should be excited to be where I am and why I should be excited that I get to do what I get to do. I know a lot of this sounds really good when you hear somebody say it, and it's a lot easier said than done. But, like, I would rather, I think, like, I don't know, Hal Elrod, I remember back in the day, like, my first RDC, Hal Elrod came running across the stage. And one of the big takeaways I had from seeing him in his message was just, I would rather focus my energy towards the positive so it can help me grow, because of, like, whatever I focus on, that's what's going to grow. And that's just where I choose to put my energy. I want to try my best. I want to try to beat my best ever every chance I get. Every time I walk into a show, I know in the back of my head, this is the best day I've ever had at a booth. It's $18,936. That was my best single booth day. I know that my best week ever is $52,000, so I'm always trying to beat that. I know my best campaign ever is $287,000, so I'm always trying to beat that. I haven't yet, but I will. And I just know these things, so every time I go into what I'm trying to do, my focus is how do I kind of take that to the next level? Because I know as hard as it does sound, we all want to be one of those $1 million reps on stage one day. And over the years, we just keep climbing, we keep progressing, and that's what it's going to take for me. Now, I also know for a fact that it only takes one interaction to change everything about my day, my weekend, my month, my campaign, or my year. And because I know that one interaction can matter that much, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to choose to try to give my very best to the next person I talk to because I don't want to mess it up. I believe that it's possible to have that 10K, that 20K, that 30K, that 40K, that 50K, that 100K moment at the booth. Because we're getting to be in front of so many people that those people are out there. So I want to be ready for them when they do show up. So that's where I'm going to put my mindset. That's where I'm going to put my energy, towards being ready for it to happen and not caring about anything that I can't actually change because it already happened. So that doesn't mean I don't have self-reflection about my day or what I did. That just means that I'm going to do my best to focus my energy on what will help me the most. And because of that, I treat every event I walk into like it's the best event ever. I remember Chelsea asked me a couple years ago when we were at our state fair prep, she was like, what do you do to prepare for the fair that's different from your other events? And I said, nothing. I treat every event I'm walking into like it is my state fair. And when I started doing that and I started having that level of commitment to what I was doing, my numbers drastically shifted. And I went from being that 200K rep to being that 400K rep. And then I kept doing it. Now, instead of being that 400K rep, I'm that 600K rep. Because, again, the intentionality that we bring to the table does matter. So, basically, I'm going to challenge everyone in here. We all have those moments. And I want you to be honest with yourself in that moment and do the one thing you know that'll help you, because what'll help you is different than what's actually going to help me. So you have to know yourself well enough and be honest with yourself. Like hearing Bert say that earlier, it's I just want to be honest with myself, and this is what I can and can't do. So what's that one thing you can do for yourself to help you in that moment when you are going to struggle? Because it's going to happen. We can sit here and be happy and positive and have those expectations, but we're going to get that person that upsets us. We're going to get that person that makes us angry. We're going to get that person that hurts our feelings. We're going to have those moments when we're at the booth sometime before the end of the year. But are you going to be that person that tries to overcome it and does something you know because now you're ready for it? Or are you just going to let it happen and have a bad day because of it and then have it affect your next day or your next week or your next month or your next campaign? Like for me, I'm going to try my best to make sure, despite whatever happens, I'm just going to continue to be my best. So I know I have a little time left, but that's really what I've got. So I'm going to leave you with a quote that's helped me. I don't know who it's from, but it helped me a lot. Mental toughness is understanding that the only true obstacles in life are self-imposed. You always have the choice to stay down or rise above. So it's up to you. Thank you.